Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the ETIP application overview webinar. We're going to give everyone a couple of minutes to get connected and get the audio working. We have great participation today, and we are so excited that we will be able to offer this grant this year. Even more money has been made available to us for this. So thank you all for joining. We will be asking everyone to mute during the presentation. There will be a significant amount of time for Q&A because we know that's what most of you are here for. And we have Christine Sisk, who most of you are familiar with, who will be available to help answer those questions, those that I am not able to answer. But for those of you who don't know, I'm Sarah Hartwick, VP of Education and Workforce Policy at the IMA, and I will be helping to coordinate the ETIP grant program this year. While we are giving it a minute or two to get started, and I do see that there's already a question. Yes, we will have the presentation and recording will be sent to everyone who registered, and it will be posted on our ETIP website for webpage for later viewing, or if you want to share it with anyone who wasn't able to attend. As people are joining, I want to make sure that we mention one of our biggest events that is coming up. Just kickoff is next Friday. We will be doing our second annual Makers on the Move bus tour. This is in partnership with IMAC, and the IMAC and IMA team organize a bus tour every year. This year we'll have 23 stops. Our kickoff will be next Friday, October 6th, Manufacturing Day at Boeing. Does anyone else have an issue hearing? I do see that there's a comment in the chat that you are not able to hear. So if someone do a thumbs up so we can make sure that others hear. I do see.
Sarah,
Thanks.
Sarah, you sound great.
Thank you, Gordy. So the bus tour will kick off next Friday, and we will be traveling the entire state. Key stops being in Springfield, Peoria, Quad Cities, McHenry County, Rockford, Lake Zurich, Aurora, Joliet, Elk Grove Village, Chicago. And so we are really looking forward to this. We do have a website that you can see all of the stops and register. It is on makersonthemove.org. So please view that website for a complete list of the stops and to register. Why don't we, I know some people are still joining, but we'll go ahead and get started to be respectful of everyone's time. So again, I'm Sarah Hartwick, VP of Education and Workforce Policy here at the IMA. This year, we will be receiving ETIP money from DCEO in a total of almost $5.5 million. For those of you who are familiar with this grant in the past, we have previously received about $1.46 million. We were given an additional $4 million in the budget this year. So we have quadrupled what we receive, and we are really looking forward to administering this program again and getting our members and manufacturers across the state reimbursement for up to 50% of their training costs. So we'll go ahead and get started. You will see on the next slide, on the slide that's on your screen right now, that you can use the chat feature if you have questions, at least during the presentation or any comments. And then we will also have time for live Q&A after the quick presentation, just providing an overview of the grant process. We also have the email address, etip@ima-net.org, that you can email anytime you have any questions on the grant or the application process. We are here to help make this as easy for manufacturers as possible. So what we will be reviewing at the webinar this morning is the ETIP grant process. We'll go over the process itself. We will provide a list of eligible trainings. This is not a list that is complete, but just to give you some examples. We will also provide examples of items that have not been covered, the specific application process, required documentation, and again, the live Q&A at the end to answer any questions that you may have that we did not cover. So just to give you an overview, as I kind of mentioned about the grant, is we are so excited that we received the ETIP job training grant for this next fiscal year from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. We appreciate support of Governor Pritzker and the state legislature for making this happen. Again, this grant can cover up to 50% of your eligible job training costs. And this is for trainings that have been conducted. We will backdate it to July 1st, all the way through June 30th of 2024. So here are some specifics about the ETIP grant that we want to make sure you are aware of. The trainee must be a full-time Illinois-based employee. And we know that there's a lot of companies that have more than one location in Illinois. However, the grant requires that each location submit an application separately. Again, the training must be conducted and paid for within the FY24 fiscal year. So that is July 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2024. And both external and internal trainings will qualify for this up to 50% reimbursement. Here is an example of eligible training courses. And again, this includes, but is absolutely not limited to, the trainings that are listed here on this page. Again, we will post this to the website so you don't have to frantically write all of this down. But some examples are OSHA trainings. Lockout tagout is a very popular one. Office injury prevention, red metals training. I mean, you can see here on the list that it is quite expansive. However, if there is, we are always able to review your trainings and let you know whether or not it qualifies before you begin the application process, just to really make sure that you know whether or not you're going to qualify before you begin all the paperwork. This next slide is examples of items that are not eligible for reimbursement. So that's anything employee orientation training, any soft skills, consulting fees, team building, on-the-job training, one-on-one training. And again, we'll post this list. Sexual harassment training is not eligible for reimbursement, but we do want to note that the IMA offers a free course on sexual harassment training for IMA members. Conferences, workshops, seminars. Again, this is just the list that we put together of the most common questions that we receive for those who are applying for the grant of items that are not covered. If you have any questions, again, we are happy to take a look. So the application process for this year will mirror what has been required in terms of forms from previous years. Right now, we are in the beginning stages of the grant period. And so we will be asking for a completed and signed company profile, as well as the completed multi-schedules. Now, the multi-schedules are the list of trainings that you expect or plan on having conducted for this next fiscal year. It does not have to be 100% accurate. It is always subject to change, and we respect that. But if you have a list of trainings that you are planning on doing for this next fiscal year, include it in the multi-schedule. The reason that we ask for this information, that the state asks for this information, is that we need to show DCEO that we have the companies, employees, and training dollars to fully utilize the $5.5 million in grant funding that we're receiving. So again, this is just almost like a draft, but this is really important that we get this at the beginning of the grant period so that we can show DCEO, yes, in fact, the need is out there and we will be able to fully utilize all of the dollars that are being appropriated to us.
Really quick, Sarah.
Yes.
There was a question on if you need to submit a company profile if you've submitted in the past. And the answer to that question is yes. You need a signed company profile each grant period. So if you did one last year, it needs to be signed within this grant period and resubmitted.
Thank you. And so there's a lot of words on this slide, but we really wanted to make sure that we covered everything for you all during this presentation. And again, it will be posted on our website, but these are just a few things that we ask you keep in mind as you are getting your documents together. And again, this is based on previous ETIP grants, but this will be the same for this coming year in terms of the items that are required to be submitted. Probably the biggest question that we get from our members is employee counts. And this is something that we go back and forth with a lot just to make sure it's clear and we're accurate in what we are receiving and submitting to DCEO. An employee can only be counted once for the full duration of the grant period. Now, it is very likely that employees attend multiple trainings that you are submitting for reimbursement. So you will receive reimbursement for each of the trainings that employee participates in. However, when it comes to filling out the paperwork, the individual employee will only receive an X on the training form one time, whether or not they are a new and existing employee. So future quarters that you submit for, you will still list that employee's name as a participant in a training so that you receive that reimbursement. But in terms of the employee counts, you do not need to identify if they're a new or existing employee because that will only be logged by us once. There is also, each training course will need the following information: a completed training course expense report. If it is an external trainer, we will need a copy of the invoice, a canceled check, or a credit card receipt to show that there was proof of payment. And for an internal trainer, we only need a document showing the employee or employee's salary. There's some details on the copy of the check or the credit card statement. We need both back and front of the canceled check. And then the credit card, we just need to show the initial charge and proof of card payment after the date of the charge. So for example, the charge was made in October, the November card statement will show that charge. And then the same for a canceled check and the electronic payments. We will also need a complete attendance sheet or a sign-in sheet. Sometimes this is done electronically, and that's fine. Sometimes it's done as people walk in and they just sign a piece of paper saying that their attendance log saying that they are there. Either of those work as part of what we will require for submission to DCEO. We then also need a completed master training roster. We ask for this information on a quarterly basis, and then a completed expenditure summary report. These are all forms that we have requested in the past, so there will not be any changes to what you have previously submitted if you are familiar with this grant process in previous years. But and we're also able to help for those new applicants kind of walk them through what all of this means. And all of these forms are provided by DCEO. And so it's our job to just translate those forms for you so that they are complete and accurate. So that is a very, very high level overview. I do want to mention that, as I said, we are in the beginning stages of this year's grant period. We are accepting the completed profiles, company profiles, and the multi-schedules right now. As we have done in past years, the IMA sets quarterly reporting requirements for each quarter, where you submit all of that required documentation that's listed on this previous page. The first deadline likely being December 30th. The next deadline, Christine, I believe we were going to talk about January. We will list all of this information on our website and in all of the email communications. So also additionally, if you do not receive our email communications, please let us know. we can put you on our ETIP list. And then also as a side, if you are not an IMA member, we're happy to talk to you about that as well. But we will have those quarterly requirements beginning in December, all the way through the end, all the way through June, where we will ask 4 times for completed information to submit to DCEO for the up to 50% reimbursement. I will also mention that what happened last year, this grant is really a first come, first serve process. So what you submit in court, it is really important that you submit on a quarterly basis so that you are able to get the full up to 50% reimbursement. We had a significant number of requests for funds in the fourth quarter of last year. And frankly, the money just ran out. So we had to cap trainings lower than we usually do. Typically, we cap trainings around $30,000 to $70,000, but that really depends on the number of applications that we receive and the amounts that are being requested. However, it is really important that you submit on a quarterly basis so that you are able to take full advantage of what you qualify for in that up to 50% reimbursement. You are maybe able to submit quarters 1 through 4 later, but it is not likely that you are going to get your up to 50%. So we will make that explicitly clear this year as we share the information to everyone on this call and anyone who's interested in applying for the ETIP grant, the quarterly schedule. With that, Christine, is there anything that I missed?
So we do have a few questions as well. So someone asked, a profile has to be submitted for each location. What if our building is connected, but with separate addresses? So my kind of question or statement there for that one is, if it is the same company using the same FEIN number, in that case, you can combine that one into one. If they are 2 separate company names using different FEIN numbers, then they will need to be separate. And another question, if we did the multi-schedule from previously, do we resend as well? Yes, the multi-schedule needs to be submitted every year of the grant, in addition to the company profile. The multi-schedule and the company profiles, we would like to have them submitted by October 31st. So we can kind of get everything put together for our application to DCEO and be able to get those reimbursement documents being submitted by December 31st for quarter 1. Sorry. The slides will be available on the IMA ETIP webpage, which has been linked in the chat. And we'll also send that out when we send the recording and the slides and everything to everybody, to all of the attendees. We'll make sure you have that website as well. Do you accept screenshots of electronic funds transfers for payment, for the proof of payment? Yes, as long as you are showing that it is from your legitimate kind of payment source, then a screenshot of that would be okay. Yes, the video will be shared afterwards. Did the forms change from last year? Technically, no, but a little bit, yes. So the grant number is different and will be different. And because we are getting additional funds this year, it's kind of coming to an internal issue that we will take care of at the IMA. So if you can just leave the grant number off, an IMA employee will fill in that grant number. Then if you would like a copy of it back with that grant number, let us know and we can send those forms back to you with the official grant number in there. First deadline will be October 31st for the multi-schedule and the company profile. First reimbursement deadline will be December 31st for quarter 1. Kind of given a little bit extra time there to get those Q1 documents into us, because we are kind of asking for the application documents first. If you've got them ready and you want to send them prior to that December 31st deadline, we will gladly accept them so we can start reviewing them.
There is a question about the multi-schedule changes. Yes, it is absolutely okay if that multi-schedule changes throughout the year. Again, this is just what we use to show DCEO to indicate that we will be able to use all of the grant dollars that they are providing to us. So it is absolutely okay if it changes. I mean, if you add a training or take away a training after you submit your multi-schedule, that is completely fine. But if there is any training that you are even thinking about conducting this year, make sure that it is included on the multi-schedule. Again, there's no penalty for removing or adding, but we'd rather you make it as inclusive as possible of everything that your company is even considering doing for this year.
If we had a training for all employees on one invoice, most of the employees living in Illinois and a few in other states, how should we submit for that? If the invoice breaks out, or you can show that it was for X number of employees at this cost, so you can break out what the per cost employee is, then just kind of, you can write on the invoice, 15 Illinois employees, 5 out-of-state employees, and then you can break out the cost and submit for just that cost.
There's a question about the forms on the website. Will it include the new grant number? It will. We just don't have a grant number at this point. Oh, it will not. Okay, never mind.
It will not. And sorry, Sarah.
You're good.
It will not, because of the additional funds we are receiving. We are receiving 2 separate grants this year. So we will have to kind of determine, kind of throw them into different pockets on where we have money existing, that sort of thing. So we apologize for that, but it's kind of the easiest way for us to do it, to be able to keep track of everything.
Yes, thank you, Christina. I apologize for that. As I mentioned, we received 1.46 million in the past, and we are getting an additional pot of 4. So we will be having the 2 grant dollars. So we'll work on that internally to determine which grant you are going to pull those funds from, but that's something that we will handle. So that is what's new this year. Thank you, Christine, for catching that.
Are there limitation guidelines for sign-in sheets? We use digital rosters and want to make sure we include all necessary details throughout the process. Kind of the important things to hit on, especially with the digital rosters, is shows the employee name, shows the course name, shows the date completed. Those are kind of the 3 hot spots that you want to make sure you have on there. And then if you have kind of a pass fail, maybe your date completed indicates that they passed the course, but a pass fail too, because it's reimbursed for completed past courses.
Yeah,
I will use this opportunity to make sure that everyone is muted, so that we can go through the questions. I know there's a couple that may have accidentally got off mute, but just make sure you're muted throughout this presentation. How is internally developed training handled? And Christine, I'm going to kick this to you because I don't want to be incorrect, but I think I know the answer.
Internally developed training is handled like any other internal training is. So we will need copies of your attendee sign-in sheets, and then copies of the internal trainer's hourly rate of pay.
And to make sure it qualifies, we will also need a syllabus or a description of the training, just to make sure that it is eligible for reimbursement. The next question is, ETIP is awarded. We submit reimbursement 4 times. So you will receive 4 checks throughout the year, based on our reimbursement schedule. So it is not something that is just issued at the end of the fiscal year. It is based on our own submission timeline. So again, those who submit December 31st, we will submit that, turn it around, get it to DCEO, and request that reimbursement. And typically, Christine, it takes how long to get the money back, or to get the checks?
Anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, correct.
Also keep in mind with that, though, that you may get your stuff in for Q1. If we are still waiting on additional information from you that was not initially submitted, your Q1 might not get in with the rest of Q1. It might get submitted with Q2. So just a little something to kind of keep in mind there too.
The multi-schedule form, it is linked on our website, correct, Christine?
Yes, it is on the IMA ETIP webpage. So if you go to ima-net.org, I think that's a /ETIP. It's also under workforce if you're just on the IMA website as well.
This question, I think this is for Christine. How should we submit internal trainer wages that have changed in the middle of submission period?
Just submit a new employee hourly rate of pay sheet for if an employee's hourly rate of pay changed. So if you had somebody train and they did a course on July 5th and their hourly rate was $15 an hour, and then they did one on July 27th and their hourly rate, they got a raise and their hourly rate's now $20 an hour, you just need to submit separate pay invoices for, or separate internal document of what the rate of pay is.
And the next question again, yes, we will have all of the documents posted on our website so you can start getting a sense of what will be required, and then also start to submit those company profiles and multi-schedules. This next question I'm going to have Christine, you take regarding the additional funding from another source for a training.
The grant training fund a training that may have additional funding from another source, as long as it is not more than the cost of the training. Can you give a little bit more information on that one so I make sure I completely understand the question?
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I have other sources of funding for some of our training, and I don't want to double dip over something that you may be reimbursing 50% of. And I'm wondering how, or what's your rules on that is basically what I'm looking at.
Well, there's no double dipping for sure.
Exactly.
So if you are getting funding for a course that is a state funded or federally funded, we can't submit that for ETIP.
No matter if it's 10% of the training? So if I'm getting, say, 10% from another source, would you still reimburse this for the 50% or up to the 50%?
Let me have a conversation with DCO regarding that one, just so I make sure that I give you 100% all of the information that you need. I can see if we take that 10% that you're getting funded from elsewhere and take that off of the invoice price, of what's remaining, you can get a 50% reimbursement for.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
The next question has to do with the accounting side of things. So how can we know at the time of submission how much we will get reimbursed? Christine?
Hang on a second, I'm reading the question here. Unfortunately, there's no way to completely determine that answer, because until we see how many companies and what the requests are, we can't tell 100% for sure if you're getting the full 50, if you're getting 25%, if you're getting 10%, until we know what our requests are. Which is why we generally try to say it is up to 50% in reimbursement.
If that didn't answer the question completely, please feel free to jump on and we can talk about it more. The last question is an 8-week CNC open enrollment course eligible for ETIP reimbursement. I would have a question about open enrollment, but Christine, you may have come across this in the past.
I'm not for sure about the open enrollment portion of it. CNC courses are covered under the ETIP grant.
Yep. And that concludes what everyone has submitted in terms of questions. But if anyone has any others, please raise your hand or put it in the chat, or if there's any follow-up as well. We have one more. First slide says rep training. Second says no workshops. What about ERP training workshops?
So we do offer the ERP trainings are typically, we can typically get some ERP trainings covered. Some of it is a little bit on a case-by-case basis. And if you have an available course syllabus that you can send, that is helpful in determining if it is covered or not. As well as, yes, the slide said no workshop conferences, sometimes kind of depending on what that conference covers. We can get some of those covered. Again, it kind of depends. It's a little on a case-by-case basis. And if you can provide a course syllabus, that is very helpful to us to determine if we can get that covered or not. Continuing education workshops are not covered. Continuing education is not covered under the grant. Same kind of with the OJT, the on-the-job training. That requires a special request to DCEO to get that pre-approved. And if anybody is interested in finding out more information on that, if you would like to email us at etip@ima-net.org, we're happy to send you along the information, the documents that are required to get the OJT approved.
Christine, there was a follow-up with the ERP system has a whole online training portal and that they're implementing the system now. So there's going to be a lot of training associated with it.
Yes, all of the online training portal is definitely covered underneath the grant. Again, we kind of will need to see some information in your contract to be able to determine how to break out that training cost.
There's a question about if the part of the training started the last grant period and finished in this grant period, can you get a portion covered of the training? The answer is no. It must be all conducted and paid for within this current fiscal year. And then Christine, there was a question about the multi-schedule. Can you elaborate more on the columns in this multi-schedule, where the examples are coming from? Schedule B tab is what Brittany's looking at.
Let me pull this. Let me pull it open. I apologize.
And there's another question about the syllabus for workers' compensation and safety conference. I don't believe that would be covered, but go ahead and send us the syllabus and we can take a look. But typically conferences are not covered. And not typically, they are not covered.
A little bit more on the columns in the multi-schedule and where the examples are coming from. Schedule B tab is what I am currently looking at. So on here, column A, obviously the name of the training course in which you are doing. Column B is the total number of trainees from course A, from schedule A. So it should just automatically carry over for you. Your total of what your new and existing is that you kind of input over there. B is total number of trainees and how many are new. So of your trainees, how many of those are new trainees, and how many are existing? It looks like some of this was just kind of manually put in and not carried over. Column B is the only one who carries over from Schedule A. So technically all of this should kind of match around your total should be the total of all of your new and existing, and that number should carry over to Schedule B in column B. And then you break that out yourself on how many are new and how many are existing. For purposes of the grant, a new employee is anyone who was hired on or after July 1st of 2023, regardless of when they take their first training.
If we haven't received a check from last year, should we reach out to you? We are still, we're in the process of sending what we submitted for Q4, which like Christine said, if you submitted quarters 1 through 4 at the Q4 deadline or Q2 or 3, or if we were going back and forth with you to make sure we had correct information, everything that was submitted for Q4, we are in the process of issuing those checks. Happy to, if you send an email, we can look into it. But just generally, we are in the process of sending out those checks for everything that was submitted for Q4.
In regards to the missed question regarding the internally developed trainings, it's kind of very similar to what you already submit for internal trainers. But if you can also submit your course syllabus that kind of outlines the training, that's kind of additional that's needed for that.
Any examples of forms that are filled out correctly on the website so we can get a visual? Christine, we've talked about this.
Yes. So we have kind of temporarily taken some of the stuff down in preparation for the FY24 grant, and we're continuing to repopulate that web page. I do have sample forms. I've updated the sample forms. I've updated all information. So you will have a complete packet to be able to look at. And all of that will be put back up on the website this afternoon.
The next question about various language trainings. Yes, ESL trainings are covered. Just to send us the syllabus so we can just make sure that it is absolutely covered. But we do have a number of those trainings in the past and even this year that we're looking at that do qualify for reimbursement.
The frequently asked question says courses taken on alchemy are covered. How would this be submitted for reimbursement since it is an online portal? It is submitted. It depends on your contract and how you pay for it. Do you pay for it by course? Do you pay for it by employee? So we kind of need to take a look at your contract, see how you pay, and then we can advise you on how to break that out cost-wise.
The Q4 date. So we had required last fiscal year, or for the last grant period, that Q4 reimbursements applications be submitted to us by July 15th. And then we turned around to submit that to DCEO, I believe at the end of July. So that's why, again, in accordance with the 6 to 8 weeks, we're in the process of getting those checks out. Who would be considered the company officer on the company profiles?
So it would be any officer at your company. So anybody that your company considers an officer is who you would put there.
The question of, is it required to have a copy of the training? We just need a description, or a detailed description, ideally a syllabus of the training. And I believe this question is in reference to the ESL training. So that is all that's what we need as a part of verifying that it qualifies for reimbursement. And then the list of the documentation that we had shared previously would also be required. If you have more information, or if you have more questions on that too, we're happy to talk you through it.
On the company profile, do we include agency employees under EE number, even though they are not eligible for the training? I'm looking at the company profile right now to see. So the number of employees listed on there would include all employees, regardless of whether they're eligible for ETIP or not.
There's a question I just want to make sure I received a comment that it is also clear that LinkedIn trainings do not qualify. That seems to be a question that we do get a lot in our business development folks receive. So LinkedIn trainings do not qualify. The question about the purchase a training package online where employees can take as many courses as they want. You can't, I would say, yes, we just need attendance sheet. We just need all that appropriate documentation and each training broken out.
And as long as the training course they're taking is an eligible training course, then yes.
Is there a possibility that ETIP can ask for the money back? I don't know if this has ever happened, but that's why we do a lot on the front end to make sure that you qualify and make sure that you will get that reimbursement. But Christine has a little more history than I do with it.
So this has not happened to my knowledge, but yes, it can. So if, for instance, DCEO does an audit, they find something is missing, a canceled check, an attendance sheet, whatever it is, if something is missing from that packet and you cannot produce it at the time it's asked for, then yes, they could ask for the money back, which is why we so diligently, why I email you nonstop if something's missing to try to avoid that from happening.
Christine, there's a question about 12 class supervisors leadership course, if it's covered, if it's purchased by a third party, but all the classes are taught by the company training director.
If you can provide a course syllabus for any leadership class, that would be appreciated, because those are kind of a little bit more on a case-by-case basis. There are some that are kind of a little bit more just straight soft skills and would not be covered, where others we can get covered. Sales training is not eligible under the ETIP grant.
But there's a second part of that question that I want to make sure that just remind everyone that the employees need to reside in Illinois. So if they reside in another state but are taking any trainings in Illinois, they have to reside in Illinois in order to qualify for the reimbursement.
They have to be an Illinois-based employee.
Oh, never. Okay. Illinois-based employee. So you're welcome, Missouri, Indiana, Wisconsin.
They have to be full-time in Illinois.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. A training course that was from June 20th through July 28th. Again, it has to fall. The fiscal years are very strict, are cut with the state. And so it has to be within the fiscal year, July 1st of 2023 through July or June 30th of 2024. The next question, Christine, I'm skimming quickly.
Me too. On the Cimatech Paulson training, I believe so. I know I've said this a lot. If you can provide a course syllabus, it's a lot easier for me to be able to see what's covered in the course to fully be able to determine if that course is covered.
Yeah, sorry, Craig. I know we confused everyone when we answered the sales thing. So go ahead. I'll just let Christine speak.
Sales courses are not covered, regardless of the employee, where the employee is. Sales are not covered under the ETIP grant.
Training in July, don't have a signed check-in sheet for it.
If you can provide something to us that states the employee name, when they took the course, when they completed the course, what the course name is, that would be greatly helpful. And then we can probably use that as your attendee sign-in sheet. But try to start using them moving forward. And we do provide one on the website. Can certificate of completion be used as employee sign-in sheets? Absolutely.
And to clarify, yes, a new employee is anyone who started with your company on or after July 1st of 2023.
So if you have an employee who starts June 30th and they don't take their first training until July 1st, they are considered an existing employee because they started June 30th. Completed trainings through Paycom, can be counted as a sign-in sheet. Yes, I believe so. If I understand what the Paycom is, it's probably your third-party system that does all of your trainings.
Mm-hmm.
Then yes, the Paycom can count as a sign-in sheet.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or anything that we may have led to be unclear? Illinois based employee.
Yes, Julie, I can send you the multi-schedule form that you did last year.
Christine, the training sign-in sheet does not capture pass or fail outcome.
Then I would go ahead and add that in because you do only want to seek reimbursement for those employees that pass the training.
If we started the implementation prior to 6-0, then all ongoing. If the training started, yes, if it started before July 1st of this fiscal year, it does not qualify. There's another question that I think we missed about it does not qualify for this current year because it has to be within those guidelines. There was another question about, is it too late to submit reimbursement for last year's grant period? And the answer for that is yes. We've closed that out. We've gotten the final checks, and now we're moving to implement FY24.
If you kind of coming back to Donna's question on the implementation prior to the start of this grant period, if you have an ongoing training, say you're doing your ERP system, you're kind of doing an implementation for a new system like that. If you started it in July, but you are billed on a monthly basis, so you will get billed again in July, and you'll have some additional employees take training in July, then we can get that covered. But if you started in June and it's just kind of an ongoing set moving forward from there and you're not billed on a monthly basis, then no. I hope that didn't confuse a little bit more. For the existing trained employees list, does it roll over from last year, or do they get counted again for the new fiscal year if they have additional trainings? Everything starts over with this grant. So everything starts over on July 1st.
The question about Q1, yes, it will be due December 31st. And CPR training eligible for reimbursement? The answer is yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
June 2024 training unable to prove payment until July or August. We do need proof of payment for submission, but Christine, how do you? I guess that's
typically our last report. We have a final report of reimbursements that we have to send on 7/31. Then we have our final report that we send early August. That's kind of an IMA thing. If you can get it to us by the proof of payment, as long as that payment was made in June, you might not have the canceled check or the secondary credit card proof of payment to the credit card. If you can supply that by the beginning of August, then yes, we can typically get that covered in there too.
HRIS system training. I'm not familiar with them.
I'm not familiar with that one either.
Stump the IMA. If you just go ahead and send us an email, etip@ima-net.org, and we're happy to take a look at it and let you know. Refresh memory on OJT training for the 4-year apprenticeship, and some of them were on the job training for classroom training.
Yes. So I'll send you an email on kind of all of the required information for that. So again, if anybody has OJT that they would like to get approved, if you can email us at ETIP at ima-net.org, we can get you all of the required documents that you will need, so we can get all of that pre-approved.
Thank you to the masses for clarifying that HRIS is an IT training. That should be covered. If there's any questions, submit the syllabus to us. But yes, it should be covered.
Yes.
Temp status workers, I believe, do not count.
No.
Correct? They have to be
Correct.
full-time employees.
Correct.
Then the other question about internal interpreter, Christine.
Issues during training, can their rate be submitted for reimbursement in addition? Let me double check on that. That is one question I'm not for sure about. I will check with DCO and get back to you on that.
Contractors for hire, they have to be full-time employees. So contractors do not qualify. Christine, is that correct?
I'm trying to find the question on there.
It's just, does contractors for hire count?
No, they would have to be full-time employees. So if you have a contract worker and you offer them all of the same benefits that you offer your full-time employees, then yes, we can get those covered.
Simulated work environment.
If you can send us a little bit more information on that, that will help kind of determine if it's considered OJT or if it's just kind of a regular training course.
Sarah, this is Randy with
Randy.
the IMA. Hi, ladies. You're doing a fabulous job as always. One of the things that companies that I've worked with as IMA members that works really great for them is to go back to July 1 before we get too far away from it and start a complete list of everything you think you would like to cover. And if you do that list, we can, our business development staff and Christine can work with you to review your list for what's covered and what's not before you start filling out the forms. There are a lot of different intricacies to the program. Once you've done it and filled out the paperwork one year, I think you'll have a little better understanding of it. I had one company, they wanted to send someone to a welding class, and the employee paid directly to the community college for the welding class and then submitted it for reimbursement, and that does not qualify. But if the company pays the community college direct, that does qualify for reimbursement. So there's a few nuances like that that you need to know ahead of time. If you're putting together a training plan, we would be more than happy to go over those with you ahead of time to make sure we can get the maximum amount covered. And the way I've always understood the grant, if the company pays 50% of the cost of the training, the state's willing to pay the other 50%. That's the way I've always understood it, Christine. Is that still accurate?
Well, up to 50%.
Right. I'm sorry. Yes, correct. Up to 50%.
Pretty much,
Randy.
yes.
I see there's some follow-up about the contract workers. And again, the requirements are that they are full-time employees with your company in order to qualify for this specific grant reimbursement.
Yes.
VR training utilizing Oculus. Again, send that to us and we can also submit it to DCEO because I'm sure you are not the only company that is going this path. And so send it to us and let us know. And there's also a question about when you submit and that it's approved. And I'm assuming you mean take a look at the syllabus you're submitting to see if a training qualifies. We are usually pretty quick. DCO is really pretty quick on that as well. We have a great relationship with them. So we can get that answered for you within a day or two, I would say, assuming everyone's in the office and there's no vacations.
If you are talking about whether or not, if you're talking about submitting all of your reimbursement documents, and then if it's approved and you're receiving funds for it, typically we get back to you as quickly as possible because of the overwhelming need we're going through so many submittals at one time. Please allow us a couple weeks to kind of get through everything to take a look. We will let you know if we see something that is not eligible or if any changes need to be made or if we need any additional documentations. Then there was also a question, are consultant fees eligible? No, they are not. Consultant fees, travel, meals, anything like that is not eligible under the grant, whether you are sending an employee to a training or having a trainer come to your facility.
And there's a question about training for a new job with an existing employee. And as long as it's not associated with orientation, that existing employee is considered an existing employee for the purposes of this grant. But that would absolutely be covered again, as long as it is not associated with orientation. Yes, payment should be made directly by the company reimbursing an employee. Correct, Christine? Does not.
I scrolled.
I know it keeps bouncing. We love it, guys.
So,
keep it
coming. Payments made directly by the company reimbursing for training with their own credit card. It does. It will qualify for the grant for you to reimburse them as long as the course was eligible. It's the college courses that kind of vary a little bit. But again, in a case like that, if you are reimbursing an employee for a course that they paid for with their own personal credit card, we will need to see a copy of not only the receipt showing that they paid it via credit card, but then a copy of their expense report showing that on their expense report, as well as proof of payment to the employee. So either ACH submittal to the employee, a copy of the canceled check to the employee, all of those similar things still come into play.
Cybersecurity training, Christine. Yes.
I think we missed one. So if a training starts in June 2023, but ends in July 2023, would this still count for this fiscal year? It's difficult when things cross over grant periods, because if it started in June, it started in the FY23 grant period. If it goes the full year into July, it is in the current grant period. So I would have an additional question on, when was the training paid for? Was it paid for during FY24 during this current fiscal year, or was it paid for in the previous grant year?
FY24.
It was paid for in FY24. Then likely we could prorate it so we could get the training covered. It would start July 1. So any training done in June, we would have to prorate off. So none of that would be counted in there.
Thank you, Christine. Cybersecurity.
If you can provide kind of a course syllabus, more than likely, it could potentially be a covered course. But again, if you can provide a course syllabus, it kind of helps us understand what's being covered in the class a little bit.
The question about the multi-schedules, you submit that once and then that is it. Correct, Christine? So
correct.
That is why we just ask for it to include everything that you may even just be thinking of doing this year. You do not have to let us know if it changes. It is just on the front end. So we show DCEO. So only submit that once.
Yes.
Conference registration fees.
Again, we would need a little bit of additional information on what the conference is about, because conferences typically are not covered. But there are a few instances where it can be covered. So a course syllabus to know exactly what's covered in the conference.
I see a question about trainings that Illinois employees attend but are in Ohio.
So does the training have to happen in Illinois, sending team members to Ohio for robotic training? As long as they are Illinois-based employees, they can take the training anywhere as long as the training is an eligible course. Robotics training would be a ETIP eligible course. So the course itself would be covered. Any travel expenses, hotel, food, anything like that would not be covered.
Brittany, I see your question about sexual harassment training. We will we'll follow up with you on that. Mm-hmm. And again, that is available for all IMA members at no charge. Thanks, Mara. We always like a nice shout out. Yes, I can put up the screen of the eligible trainings.
And again, that will also be posted on the IMA ETIP webpage as well.
I hope you guys are seeing the right thing. And if not, let me know.
And again, those are just some courses.
Mm-hmm.
And we will screenshot all of the questions from today's webinar, and we will post them into our frequently asked questions. So that way kind of you have all the answers. So if you're looking specifically for an answer that we told you we'd get back to you on, but you weren't the person who asked the question, you can come back to the FAQs later on and be able to see the answers to that as well.
I just saw a question, and then I paid leave law with the upcoming webinar.
No, unfortunately, none of the IMA webinars are covered under the ETIP grant.
And then, yeah, just send any we'll make sure to get any follow-up information on the job training. Just feel free to email etip@ima-net.org.
Christine, I'm sorry. You mentioned that none of the training would be covered if it's IMA training, but what if it's from other sources? There's a lot of new laws coming up in Illinois in 2024, and there's a lot of webinars and things that we're part of.
If you can send me some course syllabus, if you can send me a little bit of information on some of those courses, I will definitely check with DCEO to see if that's something that we can get approved for reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We'll give it a little time for anyone to think of any additional questions. Again, we are etip@ima-net.org is a great resource to use to email with any questions. We respond pretty quickly to that, and but are always available for whatever you guys may need to help you through, to help manufacturers through this process. Again, this is such a great grant, and we are very excited to be receiving this money again this year. And we look forward to working with you guys. So if that's it, if you guys don't have any other questions, I do see a couple more chats come in. Yes, we will send out the recording and posting of the slides. There are other organizations that have ETIP from from the state. I don't, we're not familiar with theirs, but there are some other organizations. And then there's a question about employee get reimbursed hourly.
The employees taking the courses, their hourly rate of pay is not reimbursable. If it's an internal trainer doing the training, then that internal trainer only hourly rate of pay is reimbursable.
Yes, the grant period is currently open. What we are requesting right now is the company profiles, completed company profiles, and the multi-schedule that are all found on the ETIP webpage and the IMA website. There's a question about one-on-one training is not eligible. I'm sorry, I was reading another question. Christine, what is considered one-on-one training?
So it kind of depends. If you're talking more along the lines of the one training being on the job training, we need to get pre-approval for that. So if you can send us an email at etip@ima-net.org, we're happy to send you all of the requirements in order to try to get that OJT pre-approved.
And there's another question about the temporary employees. I see, Deeksha, that you had mentioned that you had listed temporary employees in the past and did receive reimbursement. Temporary employees are not qualified under this grant. So I can't really speak to what was done in the past, but they need to be full-time employees with your company in order to qualify for reimbursement.
I see Excel training is eligible. Does that mean Microsoft Office training is also available? Yes, if you're requiring your office employees or any employee to take any kind of Microsoft Office training, that is eligible under ETIP.
Question about group size required, basically 2 or more.
Yes.
We have had some trainings that have just 2 individuals that have qualified for reimbursement. Fire extinguisher AED training covered. Christine, yes?
Yes. The trainings themselves are covered. Materials like the fire extinguisher, foam, fire extinguishers themselves, not necessarily covered. Books are covered.
Are only required trainings able to be reimbursed? I'd ask for a little more information, but I would say, Christine, go ahead before I speculate.
No, not necessarily. Yeah. If an employee wants to take a specific training and it's not required by your company, and the company is going to pay for that training, then yes, that training, as long as it's an eligible training course, then it could be covered. But, and I think kind of maybe the reason why you're asking that required is I said that with the Microsoft Office question, and that is because an employee who is going to college, who's taking some college courses, those courses aren't necessarily eligible under ETIP. If the company is requiring that employee to take this course, then that is covered if it's for their future employment, their promotion, that sort of thing.
All right. I don't see any more questions, but please, I mean, we're on, so anything more that you have, we're happy to try to answer. And when in doubt, just send us the syllabus and we can get back to you. Okay, question between tuition reimbursement. Christine.
Tuition reimbursement is different than if the class, basically for college courses, it is 100% preferred that the company pays the college directly.
The on-the-job training question is it's generally not, but we do, you need specific approval from DCEO in order to be reimbursed for on-the-job training. So you'll have to send that to us and we will submit that to DCEO for approval. If this is the first time going through the grant process, the best place to start is attending these webinars and start going through the company profile and the multi-schedules and take a look at that, take a look at the required documents that we kind of reviewed and let us know if you have any questions. I mean, that's what the IMA staff is here for, to help walk you through the application process. Would be great to have FAQ on all these responses in writing. We will see what we can do. Yes. How long do the documents need to be kept in the event of an audit?
That is a question. Let me ask DCEO on that just to verify that I give you the correct information.
Last question. Do you have, just on this list, keep them coming, do you have to be an IMA member to apply? You do not, but you will hear from us on the benefits of membership when you submit your documentation. But no, you do not have to be an IMA member to apply for this grant through us. Please explain multi-schedule ETIP document, sharing your screen. Christine, do you have that one up?
I do have that one.
I can stop sharing and kick it to you.
Mm-hmm.
I see the same question about best places to start. Again, go ahead. If you want some help, go ahead and send us an email. We can set up a call and walk you through it. etip@ima-nat.org, and we can kind of go over more details for anything that we may have left out here. Go ahead, Christine.
Okay. So on obviously there's an instruction page. Schedule A, you will fill in the name of the training course. You will fill in a description of the course. So just kind of a brief description. And then how many employees do you think you will cover that will take this course in quarter 1, quarter 2, 3, and 4? And then it will automatically, or should total over here on the side. I'll have to make sure that I update what's on the website so it auto sums for you. But it will give you a total over here in K. Then on schedule B, most things, everything should auto-populate over from Schedule A to Schedule B, with the exception of your total number of new versus existing. So you should take the total number of your trainees from Schedule A and then break that out between your new and existing. And then this one is your internal instructor wages. So if it's an internal instructor who is doing the course, you'll take how many hours you expect that instructor to be teaching this course for the duration of the grant. So if you have one instructor doing a course in each quarter, you would do the complete total for the entire duration of the grant and put in the hours, how much that instructor's hourly rate of pay is, and then it will auto sum here for you. Again, the same way with the external training. So if you have any external trainings, you'll do whatever the cost is. The contractual agreement trainer expenses, I don't know why they still have that on there, but their expenses are not applicable under the grant. It's just the actual cost of the training itself. Some of these things have changed, and we have just not received updated forms from DCEO. And then if there's any training materials, so any workbooks or anything like that, and then it will auto sum for K. And then on the Schedule C budget, everything should just auto-populate from what you did on Schedules A and B. there any additional questions on that? Yes, I can send. What I will do is I will put, let me make sure that some of this auto summing is correct on here, because I've realized that some of the links have died over the years on this. So let me get that updated, and then I will put an updated version on the IMA ETIP webpage.
I see a question from Sorrel on ETIP. Why don't you go ahead and send us an email and we can do a one-on-one so we can look at your specific trainings that you're offering, that you're thinking of including. And we're happy to do that for anyone else on this call. If anyone is looking for just some more one-on-one with us on this, we can definitely schedule those phone calls and walk through the entire process based on the trainings that your company offers on an annual basis.
Yeah, and even if there's several people who just kind of need that step-by-step process on the application, on filling out the forms, we can gladly do another one of these webinars where that's all that we do, is just kind of go over the step-by-step instruction on the forms and the supporting documentation.
If you have questions about IMA membership and costs, please reach out to us. You can even email the ETIP website page, or there is a member form on our website if you're interested in learning more. And we're happy to discuss with you the benefits and the cost of IMA membership. Thank you for that great question, though.
And it does kind of look like from some of the responses that people would be interested in a webinar where we do go over the forms. So we will work on putting something together. It will probably be mid-October, because we do have, as Sarah said, we do have our Makers on the Move bus tour coming up. So that will kind of keep us a little bit busy for the next couple of weeks. But we will work on getting a webinar put together so we can fully go through all the forms and answer all of your questions on the forms.
All right.
And I would also like to say that I recognize so many names in the chat from working with you over the years. So, you know, even though you are familiar with the grant, you've done it before, still appreciate you attending these webinars, still asking the questions, and trying to figure out and learn more about the process as well. So, and thanks to all the new people too.
We love everyone. All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. If no one else has any questions, again, we will send out this recording and the slideshow. We will post both on our website. We will begin to work on a webinar that goes over all of the forms and hopefully have that scheduled for something in mid-October. In the meantime, we're happy to do one-on-ones as well, or answer any questions at ETIP at ima-net.org. I see one, if the company is trying to get certain ISO certifications, does that time count as training? We have to get more info on what is involved in that.
Yeah, if you can get us a little bit more information on that, that would be helpful in answering that question. And again, we will post everything to the FAQs once we kind of have all of the answers and everything. So, and as I continue and Sarah continues to get additional questions, if it's a question that is frequently asked, that we get asked more than once, we will post it and we will update it to the FAQs. So kind of keep a watchful eye in general on all things on the IMA ETIP webpage. In case you're not getting our emails, you can always check there for up-to-date information on upcoming deadlines and all things ETIP related. Well,
thank you all again for your time this morning. reach out at any point, and we look forward to working with everyone that's on the call, a current member or a future IMA member, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.